Hey everyone, I'm Scott Stokely, and this is going to be one of my most niche videos ever because it only applies to about 2% of you out there. However, about 15 million people are playing disc golf these days, so 2% is still 600,000 of you that are dealing with this. And some of the rest of you may be interested in the solve anyways. But first, if you haven't heard, my autobiography, Scott Stokely Growing Up Disc Golf, is available at my website, scottstokely.net, or you can download the audio version read by me at amazon.com. The best review I've ever gotten for this book was, and I quote, "If William Shakespeare had been better at telling stories, he would have wrote Scott Stokely Growing Up Disc Golf." Now, just because I'm the one that wrote the review doesn't mean that's not true. It's that good. If you want to learn about the early Wild West days of the sport, it's all here in this book. And it's scottstokely.net. Buy other tour merchandise, clothing, etc. All right, now to the good stuff. There are a lot of players, well, about 2%, I'm estimating, but this is based on all my clinics and seminars, about 2% of players that throw one hand sidearm, and then opposite hand backhand. If you do that, you need to make a change. The reason why is that whenever me or anyone speaks about the need or the advantage, for sure, of having both the backhand and a sidearm, it's not really what we mean. What we're actually trying to say is you need to be able to spin the disc both directions. The reason why is when I spin this disc with a right-handed backhand, which is a clockwise spin, doesn't matter what disc it is, it ends its flight fading left. When I throw with a counterclockwise spin, it ends its flight fading to the right. You need to have both of those in order to hit every line you're trying to hit, and certainly to make every shot easier than trying to fight the natural characteristics of the disc. But it doesn't mean you need a sidearm. It doesn't mean you need a backhand. Honestly, for the most part, if you could throw equally well backhand right-handed and a backhand left-hand, you mostly don't need a sidearm. Now I say mostly because sure, it can come in handy when stepping on a tree, but you can step around a tree like this and accomplish most of the same stuff. The reason why we throw backhand and sidearm is simply that with your dominant hand, when you throw backhand, it is easier for the vast majority of players to learn to throw a sidearm with that same hand than it is to throw a backhand with your non-dominant hand. However, a lot of players, well, about 2% of players, when they start playing the game, they throw sidearm one hand, backhand the other hand when they're new. Next thing you know, it kind of sticks. It's a problem. You're basically throwing the same throw with opposite hands. So the next question is, should you fix this? Because the only way to fix it is you're going to have to take a major step backwards and put in some time and effort, mostly time, and you're going to play worse for a while. So do you need to fix it? Well, why do you play disc golf? If you're playing for fun, you go out to league every Wednesday with your buddies, you like to score well, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter, then don't worry about it. Just throw what works for you. You can still throw Anheisers, turnover shots, and play the game. It depends just really what your motivation is. If you're trying to get good though, number one, if you're a junior or a young player who wants to play pro someday, you need to nip this one in the bud and correct it now. But it doesn't just mean you're a junior. Maybe you're a 43-year-old who wants to compete in MP50 in 7 years. Make that change now. You still have time. Heck, you could be a 65-year-old who just cares deeply about how well they perform at disc golf and wants to get better. If you want to get better, you got to make the change. So the question is, how do you fix it? And the way you fix it starts with the idea that it is easier to learn an opposite hand backhand than it is to learn an opposite hand sidearm. So I'll demonstrate. I'm right-handed backhand, right-handed sidearm. I'm going to throw a left-handed backhand. I don't practice this shot, but I understand the mechanics of throwing a backhand. So without any practice or training, for the most part, throwing left-handed backhand, I can still do this. I can throw a pretty reasonable 270, 300-foot lefty, mostly hyzer, fairly accurately. I could learn that. I could learn to get better at that. Now, how about my lefty sidearm? Keeping in mind that I'm probably the best in the world at teaching how to throw sidearm and the understanding of the mechanics on a sidearm, and with all that knowledge and 40 plus years experience at throwing sidearm, this is how my lefty sidearm looks. And I absolutely did not throw that poorly on purpose. It's just hard to throw sidearm with the opposite hand. So here's your fix. And remember, it's a step backwards to take 4 forward. The first thing you have to do is figure out which hand you would throw a baseball with. Now, if you can throw equally well both hands, you're ambidextrous, then the solve is easy. Just do whatever you want. You don't have the disadvantage of an offhand. But if you can throw a baseball better with one hand than the other, that's the hand you're going to have to throw sidearm with. I'm sure out there's going to be an exception somewhere. I've never seen it. I've never seen a player that has a dominant baseball throwing hand and learns to throw a really good sidearm offhand. I mean, post in the comments. 15 million players, there's probably 3 of you out there that can do it. No, the ball throwing motion is your dominant hand, and then you have to change your backhand to match the throwing hand that you would throw the ball with. Now here's a bonus on this though. For example, I throw right-handed ball throws. Well, if I was a player that threw my sidearm right hand, but I threw left-handed backhands, not only is it easier to switch hands in backhand as opposed to the sidearm, but I'm going from my non-dominant hand to my dominant hand, already having the knowledge of what a backhand throw is supposed to look like. I don't want to say it's not that hard, but it's not as hard as you think. It's just that step backwards, because the minute you switch to your dominant backhand hand, you're going to be worse for a little bit. But if you want to get better at this game, you have to be able to spin the disc both directions. That is the fix. So you start with whichever hand would give you the better sidearm, and then throw your backhand with the same hand. That is how you fix the one-handed backhand, opposite hand sidearm problem. Thanks, everyone.